Frequently Asked Questions About Bats by Rose Hauk, published by Western National Parks Association. Where do bats live? On all continents of the world except Antarctica, in habitats from forests, woodlands, deserts, and riparian areas. Bats have found their way to many islands, too. Townsend's big-eared bats live on the Channel Islands off of California's coast, and the Hawaiian hoary bat is that state's only native mammal. Bats are essentially tropical mammals that have adapted to live in more temperate zones. Are bats ugly? Some people may think so, but actually they're adorable when seen close up. They have dark, inquisitive eyes, sometimes outsized ears and noses, and soft, furry coats. Those big ears, plus wrinkles and lumps and odd-looking protuberances on noses and lips, help them sense their environment and find their way around. Do bats smell bad? Some have distinct odors, and a few researchers say they can detect differences from one species to another. Big brown bats, for example, exude a musky scent that's used to mark roost and hibernation sites. Unique scents may also help mothers find their own pups in the dense mass of a maternity colony. How do bats fly? Bats are the only mammals capable of true flight. Their wings are really their hands and consist of long fingers supporting a thin, furred membrane that stretches from the shoulder to the digits and reconnects along the side of the body. The hind feet are free, and a tail membrane adds to wing support. To fly, bats coordinate wing beats with chest and back muscles. Chest muscles power the downstroke, while muscles in their back are used for the upstroke. With the tail membrane serving as rudder, bats can make quick, high-speed turns in the air. How much do bats eat? One bat can consume half or more of its body weight each night in insects. A summer colony of 1,000 bats will ingest more than 4 million insects in a night. The largest bat colony known in the world inhabited a cave in Arizona in the 1960s. Those estimated 30 million bats could have eaten 350,000 pounds of insects nightly. What is echolocation? It is the method bats use to find their way around in the dark. In essence, bats see with their ears. Echolocation is used by bats to keep from bumping into things. It lets them find and capture small prey, especially insects, and helps them recognize mates. Where do bats roost? In caves, rock crevices, and cliffs. Under tree bark, in abandoned mines, in buildings, under bridges, even in tunnels. What is an outflight? Bats emerge from caves at twilight to set out on foraging flights for food. They may take breaks during the evening, but then return to a day roost at dawn. We don't really know what stimulates the evening emergence, but many bats fly in and out of a roost, testing the amount of light until it's dark enough to fully emerge. It's a real thrill to see tens of thousands of bats exit a cave or other roost in one great whirling mass at sunset. Do bats migrate? Most species in the temperate region migrate short distances seasonally to reach hibernation sites. A few go much longer distances. The hoary bat, for instance, goes back and forth from Canada to Mexico to avoid the cold. Little brown bats also migrate considerable distances from winter to summer roosts. Mexican free-tailed bats are a famous migrating species. They arrive in the Southwest in spring, roost for several months in Carlsbad Caverns and elsewhere, then leave by late October to spend the winter in Mexico. Researchers are still trying to pinpoint where some of the freetails go in Mexico, whether they travel as a group, how far they go each night, and if they stop along the way. The bats may find their way using physical landmarks or magnetic fields, but much is still not known about their navigation. Do bats help pollinate plants? Nectar-feeding bats, mostly in the tropics and subtropics, are important pollinators. On the U.S.-Mexico border, the lesser long-nosed, Mexican long-tongued, and greater long-nosed feed on nectar, pollen, and fruit. One of the few places in the U.S. where greater long-nosed bats are found is Big Bend National Park. Lesser long-nosed bats, more widespread, roost in abandoned mines in several national park areas, including Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument and Coronado National Memorial in Arizona. Lesser long-nosed come north from Mexico in the spring into the desert southwest, timing their journey to coincide with blooming of columnar cacti. They follow a so-called nectar trail northward and up to higher elevations, along the way feeding on the flowers of carden, organ pipe, and saguaro cactus. They feed on agaves as they move back southward later in the summer. As these bats dip in for nectar, they are accidentally dusted with pollen from the flower stamens. Through an evening, a foraging bat distributes that pollen onto other flowers, thus aiding plant reproduction. Because they forage at night, these bats seek out white or cream-colored, night-blooming flowers shaped to accommodate their long noses and tongues. Apparently, they can learn a visual image of the flowers that are better nectar sources and amazingly return to them. Where can people go to see bats? Several national park areas include natural caves that offer public tours and bat flight emergence events. Among them are Carlsbad Caverns, Coronado National Memorial, Mammoth Cave, and Jewel and Wind Caves. State wildlife agencies also feature bat viewing sites in individual states. We asked questions about butterflies. By Rose Hauk, published by Western National Parks Association. How many species of butterflies are there? Entomologists know of about 18,000 butterfly species worldwide, living on all continents except Antarctica. About 600 species flutter about the western United States, west of the 100th meridian. Texas ranks first, Arizona second, and New Mexico third in total number of species in the United States. In the western United States, the variety of habitats and life zones means a great richness in the kinds of butterflies found there. What is the difference between a butterfly and a moth? One of the best ways to distinguish butterflies from moths is by their antennae. Butterfly antennae have club-shaped or rounded tips, while moth antennae are feather-like. Generally, butterflies fly in daytime. Moths fly at night. Butterflies are usually larger and more brightly colored than moths. Butterfly caterpillars eat voraciously for 2 weeks or so, while moth caterpillars feed for weeks or months. Moth chrysalises are wrapped in silk cocoons, but butterfly chrysalises are hardened, protective cases without silk. These distinctions blur, however. For example, the skippers are butterflies that exhibit some moth-like characteristics, and some subtropical butterflies are active at night. What are the major parts of butterfly anatomy? Butterflies are insects with 3 body sections: head, thorax, and abdomen. They have 6 true legs and external skeletons. All butterflies have 2 pairs of wings, called forewings and hindwings. The hollow veins in the wings serve as structural support, much like struts on an airplane. Butterflies have large, compound eyes, 2 antennae, and a retractable mouthpart called a proboscis that is uncoiled and used like a straw to take up liquids. What makes butterflies so colorful? Butterflies' colors arise from the scales, both as actual pigments and from a structural prismatic effect. The colors range from brown, green, and orange to velvety thick blacks and blues and tissue-thin copper, yellow, white, and silvery blue. Some have iridescent streaks and metallic markings. Others are checkered, spotted, dotted, and intricately veined. With such exquisite colors and markings, it's no wonder that butterflies have been likened to flowers with wings. What is the life cycle of a butterfly? What we think of as a butterfly is just the adult stage of the insect's life. In fact, the adult is totally unlike the organism that hatched from the egg. The complex process called complete metamorphosis occurs in 4 stages: egg, caterpillar, chrysalis, and adult butterfly. The entire cycle for most butterflies takes about a month. Some species go through the cycle once a year, others several times annually. For those in cold climates, at high elevations, or in arid places, the cycle can take 2 years or more. How high, how fast, and how far can they fly? Migrating or moving with storm fronts, butterflies can reach several thousand feet in altitude, but most average about 2 or 3 feet above the ground. Most butterflies can travel 5 to 12 miles an hour, but in a sprint, their top speed could be 50 miles an hour. In terms of distance, a migrating monarch might go 80 miles in a day, but that would be a long distance for any butterfly. What are their major predators? Birds, lizards, frogs, spiders, mammals, and other insects such as wasps and dragonflies commonly prey on butterflies and caterpillars. How does weather affect butterfly activity and numbers? Butterflies prefer warm, sunny, dry weather. They rarely move about on cloudy, rainy, or cold days. Seasonal temperatures and length of daylight also affect their movements. Late freezes can stop emerging adults in their tracks. Long droughts can greatly reduce sources of nectar plants and thus their sources of food. The wind can carry numbers of butterflies to a locale, and when it blows hard, the delicate butterflies must seek shelter. How do butterflies serve as environmental barometers? Because of their close association with plants, butterflies respond quickly if they lose host plants or overall habitat. And with the importance of ambient temperature to their flight and behavior, they are susceptible to climate change. Whether they will be able to adapt quickly enough is a huge question. Some, such as Edith's checker spot, have already shown significant upward and northward movements in their ranges, but not every species can be as responsive or flexible. Where can I go to see butterflies and get more information about them? Just about any flower-filled place. Even your own backyard or neighborhood park will have butterflies. You can also venture farther afield to national parks, forests, wildlife refuges, and preserves. Many arboretums and public gardens throughout the West feature butterfly houses and exhibits. In addition, organizations such as the North American Butterfly Association and local chapters, the Lepidopterist Society, and other regional groups meet and offer field trips devoted to butterflies. Frequently asked questions about hummingbirds. By Rose Hauk, published by Western National Parks Association. How many species of hummingbirds have been discovered? Between 330 and 350 species are known, depending upon who's doing the counting. All of them live in the Caribbean and South, Central, and North America. Hummingbirds belong purely to the New World, and they reach greatest numbers and diversity near the equator. In the United States and Canada, 17 species are known to nest, but another 10 or so have been recorded. These numbers are subject to change, however, as different hummingbirds show up in different places. How big do hummingbirds get? How small? The giant hummingbird, at about 8.5 inches long, is the largest. It resides in South America. The smallest is the bee hummingbird of Cuba, a mere 2.25 inches long. The calliope is the smallest in North America. The largest on this continent is the blue-throated. What gives them their iridescent colors? The gleaming emerald, bronze, and violet colors result from both pigments and mostly feather structure. Flat platelets on certain feathers contain bubbles of air that split light into a spectrum of colors, much like a prism. That light then reflects and refracts to our eyes. Thus, the iridescent colors change instantaneously depending upon angle of light, the viewer's location, and the bird's constant movements. Rusts, browns, and more subdued colors come from pigmentation alone. Females of some species overall are duller in color than males. In dim light, both genders and juveniles are dull and thus more difficult to identify. How do hummingbirds stay warm? By eating and moving almost constantly. Their small body size means a high rate of heat loss, so they must take in a huge number of calories each day just to maintain body temperature. How fast do hummingbirds beat their wings? Rapid wing beats are another hummingbird superlative. The smallest ones exhibit the fastest wing beats of any bird known, up to 200 beats a second in courtship displays. Larger hummingbirds have fewer wing beats. On average, however, a North American hummingbird in flight beats its wings about 53 times a second, more than 3,000 times a minute. How fast can they fly? A person on a bicycle would have trouble keeping up with a hummingbird. They fly 24 to 30 miles per hour. Males up to 60 miles per hour when performing fantastic aerial maneuvers to defend food supplies or attract females. During display flights, they zip skyward, then pause, shoot back down in a meteoric dive, often emitting a buzzing sound at the bottom of the dive. Each species exhibits a distinct pattern in these flights. During mating season, a male may also perform a shuttle display in which he swings back and forth in front of the female pendulum fashion, often buzzing or pumping his tail up and down at the same time. Where do most hummingbirds go when they migrate? The majority of western species goes south to Mexico. Some go east to Texas, and a few to the southeastern United States. Some follow set nectar corridors where they find food to keep them fueled. They use the sun, stars, landmarks, and an internal magnetic sense to guide their way. Where do hummingbirds usually locate their nests? Nests are built on branches and twigs of trees and shrubs, occasionally in cactus, in caves or rock crevices, even behind waterfalls. They can be a few inches to many feet off the ground and sometimes are shaded or sheltered by an overhanging branch. The female almost always begins building her nest before mating, taking days to weeks to complete it. Some will return to the same site year after year, building on top of an old nest to create a multi-story home, or locating a new nest in place of the old one. How long before hummingbird young leave the nest? Nestlings normally begin to fledge 3 to 4 weeks after they're born. Fledgling takes time and practice. The young must develop flight feathers and flight muscles. First, the nestlings sit on the edge of the nest, trying out their wings. Then they take off for real, each day venturing a little farther, learning to hover at flowers but staying within peeping distance of mom. After both the young have fully fledged, they're usually weaned and on their own within a week. Then they obtain their own food, defend their own territories, find mates, and migrate alone. How much do they eat? Hummingbirds must consume about half their body weight each day to support their extreme metabolism. While foraging, they stop frequently for nectar and take small amounts at a time. A single bird may visit 1,000 flowers to obtain the 8 to 10 calories it needs in a day. Before a bird settles in for the night, it fills up on as much food as possible, storing it in the crop to be digested during sleep. Do hummingbirds go only to red flowers? They do feed from red flowers more often, but they visit pink, purple, yellow, orange, and white ones too. What the birds are really after is sweet and abundant nectar. They will return to that resource no matter the color of the flower that offers it. Red may have advantages, however. It stands out against a background and is a heat-absorbing color. Hence, the nectar is warmed and is more available to the birds. Also, bees don't see red, largely eliminating them as competitors for nectar. Do hummers make sounds? Some do communicate through calls and songs, consisting mostly of weak chips, squeaks, or chatters, but nothing like the melodies produced by songbirds. What they lack in vocal ability, hummingbirds make up for in buzzing, trilling, and humming sounds arising from movement of their feathers and wings. Frequently asked questions about the saguaro. By Janice Emily Bowers, published by Western National Parks Association. What is a saguaro? The saguaro is a cactus that belongs to the plant family Cactaceae. Cacti are distinguished by several traits, including succulent branches and clustered spines produced from circular patches called areoles. Where do saguaros grow? The saguaro is limited to the Sonoran Desert. It is common throughout the desert in Arizona and in the western half of Sonora, Mexico. In California, populations are sparse and found only near the Arizona border. Is the saguaro the tallest cactus in the world? Many other columnar cacti equal or exceed the saguaro in height. In South America, at least 3 species reach 40 feet, and another 4 get to 50 feet. In Mexico, at least 6 species are about 40 feet at maximum height, 5 are about 50 feet, and 1 can reach 80 feet. How old are saguaros? We can age saguaros according to height. The relation between height and age varies with climate, among other factors. In the Tucson area, a plant 5 feet in height is about 30 to 40 years old. A 20-foot tall plant is likely to be around 70 to 90 years. The tallest saguaros might be about 200 years in age. Where are the baby saguaros? There are more than you might think. A survey in the Rincon Mountain District of Saguaro National Park found that 77 to 85% of saguaros in the population were no more than 3 feet tall. That is, aged 20 years or younger. Small saguaros mostly grow where they are protected from frost, sun, and hungry animals. Thus, you find them sheltered by trees and shrubs, tucked among rocks and grass clumps, and poking up amidst fallen branches. A careful search is necessary to discover well-hidden plants no larger than a ping-pong ball. How many branches will a saguaro develop? The faster a plant grows, the more branches it is likely to have. Most plants do not develop more than 10 to 20 branches. Fast growth is associated with wetter climates. Thus, saguaros at Saguaro National Park average more branches per plant than those at Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument. In the driest locations, even the oldest plants might never branch. When do saguaros bloom for the first time? Flowers first appear when plants reach a height of 6 to 12 feet, about 35 to 70 years of age, depending on location. What color are the flowers? Saguaro flowers are white and measure 3 to 4 inches in width and length. They are funnel-shaped. The many petals are fused at the base to form a tube that contains abundant nectar. Which animals pollinate saguaros? The many animals drawn to saguaro flowers for nectar include lesser long-nosed bat, honeybee, various native bees, white-lined sphinx moth, and a number of birds. Among them, white-winged dove, mourning dove, Costa's hummingbird, Gila woodpecker, curve-bill thrasher, verdin, gilded flicker, and housefinch. Doves, woodpeckers, and bats plunge their heads deeply into the blossoms when foraging for nectar. Thickly dusted with pollen on their head and shoulders, they then visit flowers on neighboring plants, depositing some pollen and picking up more. Bees pollinate many blossoms as well. What happens to the fruits and seeds? After ripe fruits split open, they typically remain on the plant for a short while, giving birds first crack at the seeds. Once fruits drop to the ground, seeds are avidly foraged by a wide variety of animals, including harvester ants, ground squirrels, coyotes, javelina, rabbits, wood rats, kangaroo rats, and mice. The digestive processes of ants, doves, and mouse-sized rodents generally destroy the seeds. Larger mammals are more apt to pass some seeds unharmed through the digestive tract. Birds, other than doves, also pass some intact seeds, often when perched on tree branches. Saguaro seeds deposited under trees get a good start in life. The canopy of the tree, which is sometimes called a nurse tree, protects seedlings from excessively high and low temperatures, and the litter of twigs on the ground helps hide them from animals. What is a saguaro boot? Saguaros respond to injury by secreting callus tissue. The secretion molds itself to the shape of the injury, whether a deep hole made by a woodpecker or a shallow tunnel made by a moth caterpillar. Callus tissue hardens into a cork-like layer that remains in place through the life of the plant, protecting it from invasion by bacteria and fungi. When plants die and rot, the callus tissue falls out. Some resemble boots. Others look more like bottles, buttons, or balls. How has the saguaro adapted to desert conditions? The phenomenal water storage capacity of the trunk keeps the plant alive during severe drought. The waxy coating on the skin prevents undue moisture loss. The absence of leaves also circumvents water loss. The green skin takes on the function of leaves, turning carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into the sugars needed for growth and reproduction. Why do many saguaros seem to be the same size? Seedlings become established infrequently. Yet when conditions are right for establishment, a huge crop of young plants can take hold. The new cohort matures, reaches old age, and dies more or less in concert. As long as there are a few good establishment years every century, populations are likely to persist indefinitely. Although the magnificent saguaro forests of the past have disappeared in some locations, the current abundance of young plants promises that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will get to walk through dense stands of saguaros someday.